Hello, Madeira companies. For those of you who haven't been able to see who I am, I'm Victoria McBride, and I work as the manager for technical content and training within our Quext department. And this year, I'm also really excited to serve as the Madeira family's 2022 United Way Loaned Executive. As you all hopefully know, our campaign started yesterday and will run for 2 weeks. And to help us get all of that started, I'm so excited to be here with Devin McCain from United Way. Hi, Devin.
Hello.
Devin works as the Vice President of Community Impact with our Lubbock area United Way. And you guys were so blessed to have her today because, as you're going to find out, she is one of the best speakers, especially when it comes to speaking over United Way and its impact. So before we get kind of into those details, Devin, can you tell us just a little bit about you and your history with United Way?
Sure. So, like I said, I'm Devin. I've been at United Way for 4 years at this point. I came from CASA of the South Plains, which is one of our 23 partners, where I was there for 3 years before that, did fundraising and development full-time for them, and I was also a CASA advocate for a time. But yeah, I live here in Lubbock with my husband Jake. He's a firefighter, and our 8-year-old son Lincoln, and I have a giant belly down here that y'all can't see, due with our second baby here in a couple weeks. But yeah, that's me.
And that's why we're extra excited to have her because she's popping out this baby anytime. So we're really glad that we could get a little bit of her time with us this week. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I know that for me, before I was asked to be a loan executive, I didn't know a lot about United Way, who they are or what they do. So I think that's a really good place for us to start today. And Devin has a pretty awesome presentation for us to get us started.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is a quote that I found recently in a book I was reading, and from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, that said, "There comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in." And as soon as I read that, it just clicked, and I said, yes, that is exactly it. That is, in my opinion, in my vision, that is exactly who Lubbock Area United Way is. Us and our 23 partners are constantly pulling people out of the river, often who are in the worst time of their life, whether they're sex trafficking victims, or domestic violence, or in the foster care system, or needing counseling or crisis services. Maybe their house just burned down. Or maybe they just also need a safe place for their kid to go after school or to keep them engaged. So that is us constantly pulling these people out. But also, United Way, we're the ones going upstream. We're trying to figure out why people are falling in, what is going on, and then how can we actually help keep that from happening. So it's this and that. We always say that United Way is a hand up, not a handout. I personally kind of don't like that. I'm coming to discover because it's, like I said, it's both. Sometimes it is just a handout, and we need to take care of people in their moment of crisis and what they need, but then also give them a hand up and work with them throughout. And we do that in a lot of different ways, some of which you can see here on the screen. Primarily, people know and hear about us when it comes to funding. We're in the middle of our annual campaign. We raise between $5.5 and $6 million every year, thanks to our community. About 97 to 98% of that stays local. That's always a question that we get asked. If you're wondering that, that's okay. It's why I'm here. But that other money that we do send out, if you will, that goes to United Ways of Texas and United Way Worldwide as part of our membership fees on being a part of those organizations. And what we get out of that as a staff, as an organization, is way beyond even the value of that money. So truly what we have to give to them, my job in particular could not exist without that support of United Ways of Texas and United Way Worldwide, because of the research and the advocacy and a lot of stuff that they're able to do on our behalf. All of the rest of that money stays here, right here in Lubbock in the South Plains. We invest it into 23 community partners. It is not easy to be a community partner. It's very important because there's a lot of accountability that comes with that. We have a volunteer team, so it's not myself or any United Way staff who decides which agency gets which amount of money. That is decided by a team of volunteers who work with those agencies all year to then make sure that they are using the money the way they say that they're going to. You can talk to any of our agencies and they'll tell you all about the review processes that they have to go through, because it is very, very rigorous. Again, because we're trying to get our agencies or anything, but we want to do right by you, our donors, who trust us with your funding and your money, and want to make sure that we're doing really good work with it. But like you see on the screen, that's not all that we do. That big part of going upstream and figuring out why people are falling in the river in the first place. There's a lot of other things that we have to do with advocacy, and we'll be part of the legislative session that's coming up. We do a lot of education, just like things like this, being able to come out and talk to people and tracking data. We have events like United We Read that's coming up in a couple weeks. We just serve on a lot of coalitions and work groups and trying to be all the things to all the people that we possibly can. So that's a little bit about who we are.
Yeah, and I think you brought it up. It's one of the most important things I think to share is that we have a committee of volunteers who's dedicated to making sure your funds are going not only where they need to go, but inside of those community partners if they're being used in the way that they're saying they should be used. And again, not to get anybody or catch anybody, but because we want you guys to trust us and that we know what we're doing. Another one of my kind of favorite myths to bust is that our Lubbock area United Way staff are not receiving huge salaries or compensation. I think it's easy for a lot of people to hear and then believe that fundraising organizations like United Way are receiving these funds and then keeping it for themselves to have high salaries for their staff. And the percentage that our staff keeps is below even kind of that acceptable average that we have. And I always think that's something really important to be transparent about. And you were telling me right before, people can go online and see those numbers.
Yeah, so we publish an annual IRS Form 990 where you can go in, and it has the salaries of our CEO and I believe our CFO. If I'm lying, I apologize. I know our CEO for sure is on there. We've been short-staffed at United Way the whole time I've been there, because we're very conscious of the fact that every dollar that we spend on ourselves or on our building or something else is one less dollar that's not going to an agency. So we are taken care of. I mean, don't get me wrong. If my boss is listening, we're okay. We're not starving, but no, we definitely are not keeping the majority of that for ourselves.
Yeah, and that just goes to show our team is really so dedicated in our Lubbock area, our Lubbock community, and helping hit our local issues that are really important to us, which I think is what you're hitting on next.
Yeah, absolutely. So why are we here? Why do we exist? So you know who we are. We've been here 76 years at this point, and hopefully we'll be here even longer because the need and the relevancy is still there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the local issues and why I get to come to work every day. Heads up, these are not awesome things, so just bear with me for a second. We'll get to a happy place, I promise. Lubbock and our region, we're the second highest rate of child abuse and neglect in the state, and I don't think that's a secret. We've been talking about that for years and years. Half of our kiddos are behind as they enter kindergarten, so you think back about 2 months ago at this point, and those tiny little 5-6-year-olds with those giant backpacks that are like knocking them over as they walk in the door. Half of those kids are already behind as they are crossing that threshold to go to school for the very first time. Doesn't get much better in that 60% of our kids are not grade level readers by this crucial 3rd grade milestone. I have a 3rd grader, so I'm living this life right now. If you have a 3rd grader, you've probably also have noticed that the way they do school completely shifts at that point. And instead of learning how to read and practicing sight words and all that stuff, they're now having to read to learn, and they're reading essays and paragraphs and trying to deduce the information and spelling tests and all sorts of stuff. And that doesn't stop. That's the way it's going to be until they hopefully graduate. But if they're not on track by the end of this year, so my 8-year-old, if he is not on track by the end of this year, the chances of him ever catching up are very small. And there's a lot of research about prisons and others who project their future based on a 3rd grade reading level, which is just mind-blowing to me. But it's about 60% of our kids are not where they need to be at that point. 48% of all of our Lubbock County households are unable to afford what's needed to survive. And what we mean by that, when we say survive, we mean it. That's a very intentional word. This is housing, food, transportation, childcare, healthcare, a basic smartphone plan that is considered essential, taxes, and then I think a little bit for like miscellaneous, which could be, taking care of a pet. It could be, any other number of things. But 48% of all of our households, this is 2018 data on this one, can't survive day to day. 16% of all of our people are food insecure. 13% of all adults are functionally illiterate. They can't read their prescription bottles or even understand what diseases that they have sometimes. They can't pass their GED or do any other things to better their family. We have more than double the rate of family violence compared to the state. And lots more. I'm not gonna keep going because everyone's gonna hit that log off button right now if I just keep going over all of our issues. We produce an annual community status report, which is what I came here last year if you were here, and I was able to speak about that, and our new one's coming out this year. Again, United Way is unique in that we don't provide direct services. So you can't walk into the United Way office today and get a food box or get a rental voucher or any of that stuff that's pulling you out of the river. We can't do any of that to help you right this second. We get to focus our time, again, on finding out why it's happening in the first place. We invest that money into nonprofits who are experts in what they provide, whether that's childcare or victim services intervention, lots and lots. But the only organization who exists who is looking at all of these issues and everything else in our community is us. It's Lubbock Area United Way, because that's what we're blessed and that's what we're here to do. So we're constantly tracking these issues and a lot of others and figuring out how can we help. Is it funding or is it advocacy or something else that we talked about on our last slide? So that's why I come to work every day, trying to solve all of these and more.
And it is so hard, I know, for a lot of us to hear these numbers and see these statistics, and they are, let's be honest, as Devin said, really less than desirable. We don't want to hear about these things going on around us and our children and our friends and family, but it is important for us to be aware and to realize that they're happening, so that whether it's through fundraising or volunteering or just helping educate others, we can help pull people out of the river and learn how to stop them from getting in there anyways. And the Lubbock Area United Way has a few areas of focus that do help us to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can't be all things to all people. We do track everything as much as we possibly can. But under the direction of our board of directors, we kind of narrow our focus a little bit. And so right now, for the past few years, these are our current priority areas. We are in the middle of changing these right now, actually. So we'll have some new things for everybody coming in 2023. But the solution to some of those issues, number one, like I said, is education. We've been doing education forever in some facet, and I'm sure we will continue to be forevermore. Number one is ensuring that kids are kindergarten ready. So when they're walking through the door on that first day of kindergarten, they're not behind. That doesn't mean they take like a little mini STAR test or anything, because trying to get 4 and 5 year olds to take an exam like that would be a nightmare. But that does mean that they can zip up their jacket, they can hold a pencil, they're potty trained, they've been away from their caregiver ever at some point in their life. Coming out of COVID, I know that's a big problem right now, is a lot of these kids, and especially our pre-K kids, have never ever been away, left their house. So trying to make sure again that they have been in some kind of quality early education program like early learning centers or others is a big priority for us. And then 2, trying to make sure that they're grade level readers by 3rd grade, like I mentioned earlier with my son. Number 2 is what we call safety, and that's eliminating child abuse and sex trafficking in our communities. We've done, I think, a good job of talking about the child abuse, rates being so high, but I don't think what we've done a good job about is talking about what that means. It's not physical and sexual abuse most of the time. That does happen. Most of the time, about 70% of the time, it is some sort of parental neglect of the child due to drug and substance abuse disorders by the family. So most of our problem is actually a drug problem, and not people being bad parents or bad caregivers, because no one wants to actually hurt their child. And sex trafficking is very live, very real. It happens online. It happens on our smartphones. It is not the stranger at Walmart or someone in a white panel van. Typically, most active, over 50% of all active sex trafficking cases across the U.S. Were recruited through Facebook or Instagram and Snapchat. And then there was about a 200% increase in online recruitment for sex trafficking throughout the pandemic through Facebook. So be careful for what your kids, are looking at. If they have a phone, just be careful. You want to talk to me about it after? Let's talk about that. And lastly, our third is mental health, and advocating for local access to quality mental health services and supports, which I think is relevant now more than ever
and not
before.
talked about enough still.
Absolutely.
I don't think mental health is something that people feel comfortable talking about yet,
Yeah.
or even comfortable saying that they need help with. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad that this is one of the points that we
Yeah,
talk
absolutely.
about.
Me too. 1 in 5 U.S. adults has some sort of mental illness or issue. I mean, I'm 1 in 5. I have anxiety and suffer from bouts of depression that I seek ongoing counseling and stuff for, so I can be a good employee and mom and wife and just citizen and all the things.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, though, that was talking about, the effects of 2 years of collective trauma throughout the pandemic. Everybody's going to have some sort of mental
Yes.
impact because of that, whether it's already happened to you or it's coming soon and you don't know. We might be through the worst of it, but there's still going to be these ripple effects forever. So we need to talk about it. If you need mental health services, again, I got you. Reach out and I can help you out. But a little bit about how we do that, right? Because I said United Way doesn't actually provide services. These are the folks who do. So these are our 23 community partners. 23 is not a magic number. That's just the number that we currently have. Some of them are completely local, like Lubbock Children's Health Clinic or Guadalupe Parkway. Some have national affiliations, just like United Way does, with CASA and Salvation Army and YWCA and things like that. None of them are fully funded by us, very intentionally, but they all have really great, again, quality programs. They are the experts at pulling those people out of the river and giving them a hand up or a hand out or whatever they need in that moment. So those are our best people, best friends in the entire world, because they're why we get to come every day and do the work that we do.
This is always continues to be one of my favorite parts, is looking at our community partners, because it's really important to know the how and why we impact and want to impact Lubbock areas, but the who is really the powerful part, and this is the who we're impacting. And to see some of these places and organizations, we can see that a lot of people that maybe are in our lives are surrounding us through places of worship or work or even activities our kids are involved in, could be affiliated with some of these, whether we know it or not. And Devin's, I know, about to talk about the fact that a lot of these people are coming from areas in Lubbock that we don't always expect them to come from.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I really love to talk about right now. We've said for a few years we estimate about 81% of all of the clients served by our partner agencies are considered low income. But now we're at the point where we're questioning that. Even our own data, that's always been an estimate, but that's not really what we're seeing. And again, for a very, very good reason. This is a heat map of Lubbock County, as you can kind of see here. Lubbock County is not perfectly square, by the way, which really hurts my little organized heart every time I see this on this slide. But you can kind of see here our highest zip codes served. I think this actually, might be our last year's heat map on here. But our highest two served are 79423 and 79424, which is South Lubbock, which I think is always a surprising part to people. They're also the highest populated zip codes, we have also learned. So when you think about it that way, maybe not so surprising. But 79403 is our third highest, which is over in East Lubbock. last year, so 2021, our partner agencies served over 137, almost 138,000 people. That is almost half of our entire population. That is also only through United Way funded programs. So there are agencies like the YWCA or Catholic Charities who do lots of things, and we only fund maybe like 2 or 3 of their programs. So if you even look at the programs that our partners are doing that aren't necessarily funded by us, I couldn't even imagine like what that number would be. We're trying really hard again to break that stigma of United Way is for poor people.
Yeah.
We're for poor people. We're for people in Alice. If you've heard us talk about Alice before through the community status report, but we're for everybody, no matter what your income is, no matter what your situation is. My kid will go to the YWCA Y-Care after school today so that I can work. That's the United Way funded program that impacts you no matter what your income is, or maybe they play basketball at the Boys and Girls Club, or they're a Girl Scout or Boy Scout. All of these are United Way funded programs. So it's really important that we just be able to talk about that and having that access. It's like I said, it's working, and the impact that we have. We've raised over $200 million in our 76 years, which is just absolutely mind-blowing, especially if you go back and see how much we raised at like the very beginning and how much that has grown. All of the issues you see on the slide here are things that we have helped impact and manage before. So at that point in time, we found that issue, it needed our help. We came in and we mobilized people around it, or we raised funding for it, or did events for it, or talked to our legislators about it and made a difference, and were able to move on to do something else. Many of our partner agencies were started by us, and again, not through me or through our staff, but through our volunteers who see a need in the community and have asked us to step in and do some of that. And we've engaged, I wish we could find the number of the thousands and thousands of volunteers that were engaged, because we have over 700 volunteers on the annual campaign within itself.
Yeah.
Plus you add community impact, that everything else that we have going on in our board of directors. It's just really impressive. But we do have an updated heat map on our website. If I'd have had my life together, you would have got pretty QR codes like on all these slides, but didn't quite have it that far.
We'll share it after.
We'll share it. But you can actually go in and find your zip code. We have it broken down by which agency served how many people in your zip codes. You can kind of see who's getting services where you live or where you worship, or any other kind of zip code that you're curious about.
Yeah. We'll share all that so we can
Yeah, for sure.
check it out after.
For sure. Oh, excuse me.
So now I think we're going to start talking about just different ways. We'll wrap up talking about at least different ways that we all can help and give in these last few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of ways, and I'm the community impact person. I'm not the fundraiser person. I do fundraise and I love it, but I get to look at everything from a different angle. So when I look at what can our community do to help, this is where I start, and this is my go-to. Number one is get help or get services yourself. If you can't give $1, if you can't do anything else, but you need to go see a counselor, and you know you need to see a counselor, and you pick up that phone and call Family Counseling Services right now, you have made an impact in your community by taking care of yourself. Maybe you want to go back and get your GED, or you just have something that you've always wanted to do that you need a little help to get, and one of our partner agencies can provide that to you. You're giving back in a way that you might not think before. So please go out, get services. They're for everybody, I promise. No one's going to judge you. Educate yourself, so know the issues, just like we've been talking about today. I know it's really hard to hear a lot of those things. It's really easy to just, close our eyes or ears or keep scrolling, find something else a little bit more happy. But if we don't know the issues, we're never going to be able to solve them. Be an advocate. Find something that you care about, whether it's a United Way program or not, and advocate and fight for change and help us figure out how to do that. Like I said, our legislative session is coming up. A lot of our agencies could not exist without some sort of funding or support from our legislators. there's laws that make what we do very difficult and prohibit us from serving people. So find a cause that you care about, fight for it, get involved, volunteer if you can. I know volunteerism across the nation is decreasing at a terrifying speed. And Texas is the worst state of all of them. So we know everyone is busy, but all of us nonprofits, we depend on it. We can't do it ourselves. Again, because we're limited on our staffing because of the funding that we try to give to other people. So give of whatever time that you can. And if you can, of course, give financially, whether that's through like a pledge or a one-time gift, or maybe you're donating supplies to an organization like diapers or blankets or clothes or anything else that you can think of. So last year in 2021, the average gift for our campaign was $294.
Yeah, one of my favorite statistics.
$294. It's about $565 a week. I have notes right here. I'm not doing that math in my head. Which is actually over 10,000 people made a gift somewhere in that range or less to our annual campaign, which ended up being over 20% of our annual campaign. That's over $1 million from people, like I said, who give $5 or less per week. We have another $1.5 million that comes from leadership givers who give $1,000 or more a year. So it really is everything in between. It all adds up to what we do. And like I said, it stays local as much as we possibly can. And it really goes back to these agencies. I left CASA, not because I didn't love CASA. I still have a huge place in my heart for them. But every day, a donor, a volunteer, somebody was like, yeah, I know we have a really bad child abuse problem. Like, we hear that, we get it. But like, why? Why do we have this? What they were looking for was for me to say, oh, it's drugs, or oh, it's people being bad parents, or oh, it's this, or oh, it's that. They wanted one reason that I could tell them this is why that happens, so we could focus our time, on that one reason.
That's not the case.
And that's not even close, not even close to the case. When I found out about United Way, and again, being the up the river people, we're serving people who need us right now, but also trying to stop this from happening. I was like, yeah, that's me. That's where I need to be. I've seen communities without United Ways or without effective United Ways, and it's just unbelievable, especially through the pandemic and the things that we were able to do as a community. Wouldn't have happened, a lot of it, if it wasn't for our strong reputation and our support. It's our volunteers and the people that show up for us all the time. If y'all are coming to our mid-report tomorrow, we have an incredible story of a survivor that came out of the woodwork that we found this year that just has an incredible message. I don't want to spoil it. I really want to tell you about it right now. But just know that it really does make a difference, whether it's $5 a week or $1,000 a week. I promise we're going to put your money to good use. And if you'll have questions about any of it, I'm always here.
Yeah, any questions you can send my way. I'd love to help in the continuing education for all of us. If I don't have the answer, I'll reach out to somebody who I think does to make sure to get that to you. As Devin brought up, there are so many different ways and opportunities to give through time or monetary if you feel compelled to. We all have access to our pledge forms right now, so just make sure as we're completing those, share those with myself and Renee Davis. We're running the campaign again for 2 weeks. Started yesterday, we'll go through next Friday. And just remember a little incentive, any full-time employees can get 8 extra hours of paid time off if we set up that 1% payroll deduction. And that will start the end of the first quarter next year. So for us, that's April 1st, that additional 8 hours of PTO to give 1%. So yeah, little incentive. Again, whatever we can give if you feel compelled is going to be really helpful.
Awesome. Good. Well, thank y'all so much for having us.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Devin. Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your day-to-day to sit and talk with us and educate me further in our companies.
Yeah, happy to do it anytime.
Yeah, thank you all, of course, for taking some time out of your Tuesday to sit with us. I invite you to do this again with me 1 week from today, same time, we'll have someone close to all of us, our favorite CEO, Dave Gillis, who will tell us a little bit about himself and his history with United Way, and we'll talk a little bit about our hopes for our 2022 campaign. So until then, we'll say bye and happy campaigning.
Thank you.